Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about an Irishman named Sean McBride. Sean McBride had a distinctly unusual life. Born in Paris in 1904 to Irish parents, he moved to Ireland after his father's execution there in the aftermath of the 1916 Rising. The rebellion was launched against British rule in Ireland and marked the beginning of the Irish Revolution. Unsurprisingly, he quickly became engaged in nationalist politics when arriving in Ireland, which culminated in him joining the Irish Republican Army. At the time, the IRA was engaged in a guerrilla war that would last over 2 years. It was then quickly followed by a civil war lasting one. During the Civil War, McBride joined the losing side and spent much of the conflict imprisoned by the Irish government. He continued opposing the Irish state after escaping from prison and became a close friend of Eamon de Valera, who would go on to be Taoiseach, or Prime Minister, and President of Ireland. All of McBride's IRA career occurred when he was still in his teens. He remained active in the IRA for years after, briefly becoming Chief of Staff of the IRA in 1936, while also earning a law degree. During these years, he was again arrested and imprisoned for murder, but was acquitted. He eventually put the gun aside, resigning from the IRA, and began a political career as leader of a political party named Clan na Poblachta, or Family of the Republic, in 1946. The party had brief but limited success, becoming part of a governing coalition after World War II. While an elected politician, he continued to be sympathetic to the IRA as a campaigner for the rights of political prisoners in Ireland. He eventually lost his seat in the 1957 elections, and his party dissolved soon after. He did not resign from politics, however. His legal and political career throughout his life extended far beyond Ireland. Starting from the 1940s, he began a career as a human rights campaigner and peace activist internationally. His career highlights many trends that occurred across Europe and the globe following the aftershocks of World War II. He was involved in everything from decolonization, European integration, and Cold War politics, and often held paradoxical political views as a result. Through his appointment as Minister for External Affairs in 1948, he was appointed as Vice President of the OEEC, or the Organization of European Economic Cooperation. This organization was created to help run the Marshall Plan, which rebuilt Europe after the war with American aid. He was also a signatory in many major international accords, most notable the European Convention on Human Rights and the Geneva Convention for the Protection of War Victims. The integration of Europe into one economic bloc had begun, and McBride was at the centre of it. This would eventually lead to the development of the EEC and later the European Union. During this time, he also paradoxically was key in preventing Irish membership of NATO. This was because, in many Irish citizens' views, Northern Ireland was still illegally occupied by Britain. To this day, Ireland is part of only a handful of Western European nations not to be a member. While only holding his ministerial role for 3 years, McBride managed to create a name for himself, which he would use to launch a career in the United Nations and in the field of human rights. His UN career would begin after his stint as Minister for External Affairs and would last until his death in the 1980s. Most of his work focused on newly emerging states in Africa, where he was held in high esteem by activists there, especially in South Africa. This is because McBride's father raised an Irish brigade of volunteers 300 strong and fought in the Boer War there against British rule. This gave McBride Jr. a unique in with the apartheid government. A staunch opponent of apartheid himself, he led efforts to have it abolished, including supporting an Irish boycott of South African goods in the 1980s. This was a significant protest movement in Ireland during the time, which saw a significant surging of support for equality in South Africa. This in turn gained him respect in the eyes of the ANC, who stated after his death in 1988, quote, "Our debt to him can never be repaid." His work in Africa also brought him to Nigeria, where in 1960 he helped write Nigeria's first constitution. The country was the first African British colony to be granted independence, which one can imagine felt quite good for McBride. He went on to also help in the creation of Ghana's, Zambia's, and Tanzania's first constitutions. This was accomplished as an advisor for the head of states of these countries. Together with African leaders, he also created the Organization for African Unity, now known as the African Union. He also played an extensive role in Namibia's history. In 1973, he was made United Nations Commissioner for Namibia, with the rank of Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, which he held until 1977. Namibia was then occupied by South Africa, which was under pressure by the UN to withdraw and allow free elections for the country. His status with the South African government allowed him to make headway for eventual Namibian independence, which unfortunately he would not see before his death. McBride also worked outside government institutions to further human rights protection. In 1961, he co-founded Amnesty International, which to this day is not tied to any one state, but rather has maintained its independence. He remained in Amnesty International until 1975, and his work with the organization was one of the main reasons why he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1974. He was the first Irishman to receive such an award. 3 years later, he was also awarded the Lenin Peace Prize by the Soviet Union, who had a positive view of McBride due to his criticisms of the United States during the Cold War. However, in his native Ireland, Sean McBride is not well remembered or commemorated. Perhaps he is eclipsed by his father's legacy as a martyr for Irish republicanism, or perhaps the lack of awareness surrounding Sean's international career reflects Ireland's unique ability in the 20th century to constantly look inward. Perhaps our neutrality during World War II has led to a lack of knowledge of European integration and the development of the UN. Certainly, our lack of colonies has made decolonization in Africa rather obscure, at least outside Irish Republican circles. Regardless of who remembers, it can be said that Sean McBride was a major figure not just in Ireland, but in post-war Europe for over 30 years. His career encompassed most of the major political developments which occurred in his lifetime. His politics was international. He saw beyond his own borders and attempted to help create a more equitable world out of the ashes of the World War. That's why he's one of my favorite figures in Irish history. Thanks very much.